Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that the total sum to be allocated for Head R of the estimates be reduced by $100. Since the pandemic hit us, the Ministry of Law spearheaded the implementation of a slew of legislative measures aimed at helping small and micro businesses. Through the measures, many of which were introduced as bills on certificates of urgency, these businesses were able to obtain relief that allowed them to conserve on cash flow and be protected from legal action. Measures included the temporary relief for inability to perform contracts, rental relief framework, simplified insolvency program, and the realigned framework. Like with most pieces of legislation, these are dry names, but for matters vital to our economic and personal lives. They mean the difference between a state of uncertainty and precariousness and one of dignity and purpose. They have made a difference for large groups of people, not just owners of small businesses, but the many workers employed in these businesses and companies. For parents, they mean the difference between paying attention to their children's education and future instead of worrying about food on the table. For tenants, rental relief meant they could focus on rethinking their business and relying on their landlords as trusted partners. For those who need to wind up their business through the heartache and emotional difficulty of letting go a dream, there is the assurance of simplicity and speed. These are not just subjects of headlines, but they are common sense writ hard into law. Due to the pandemic, circumstances have changed, and not due to the fault of any party. While contracts are ordinarily written as a means to hold people fast to their promises, this COVID-19 legislative measures allows a common understanding and the general principles for renegotiation. These require parties to work a basis of mutual trust and mutual gains, rather than a position that one party is trying to gain advantage over the other. The COVID-19 legislation is an extraordinary effort to make law bend to the realities and to compensate for exogenous factors such as misfortune, bad luck, and in this case, a global pandemic. The Honourable Minister for Law, in a memorable speech made last year in this House, informed how within just 9 days, his ministry, with the help of government agencies, the Honourable Attorney General and his officers from the Attorney General's chambers, and private sector professionals and lawyers, came together, conceptualized the support framework, and drafted the legislation. People in the know will acknowledge the superb quality of the legislation, which had to be drafted from scratch. The team members behind the legislation no doubt made personal sacrifices so that Singaporeans facing an almost certain financial ruin and uncertainty will get a reprieve instead. We should not forget their contributions. With almost a year has passed since the implementation of the first COVID-19 legislation, this may be an opportune time to recount the efficacy of and the feedback received on these measures. Have they worked as the Minister has anticipated? As we are not out of the woods yet from the economic effects of the pandemic, what further legislative measures can we anticipate in the future? Also, is it time that we think of having a framework legislation that can be employed swiftly when the next crisis hits us? In this regard, please allow me to share a situation that happened recently in Texas, US, as reported in the New York Times article dated 20th February 2021. As members may know, a winter storm knocked off Texas power grid and froze natural gas production. This affected millions of Texans. As a result, electricity prices, which was tied to wholesale prices and market-driven, spiked astronomically, and some Texans had to pay up to 70 times what they usually pay for the utilities. We must ensure that we have legislative levers to be able to move swiftly to prevent such instances from happening in Singapore. I look forward to the Honourable Minister's responses to my queries. I beg to move. Sir, with your leave, may I take the next card?
Hang on a second.
Very well, sir.
Question is that the total sum to be allocated for Head R of the estimate to be reduced by $100. Mr. Murali Pillai.
I'm obliged, Mr. Chairman. Sir, I've been pushing for the modernization of probate and administration processes since the COS debate in 2017. The Honourable Minister responded then, stating that the matter is under review by the relevant agencies. In a Straits Times article published in July 2017, it was reported that only 10 to 15% of Singaporeans have made wills. Even for allowing for an increase in the percentage in the 3 years plus that has passed, by international standards, this is rather low. In contrast, it was reported that in 2017, the corresponding figure in UK is more than 40%. The trouble, anxiety, and financial difficulties caused by the lack of a will, especially when the breadwinner dies, is real. The low numbers present an opportunity for us, though, to modernize the processes spelled out in the Wills Act enacted 183 years ago. With the technological advancement we have made since, we should be able to provide options for Singaporeans to execute digital wills, ensuring that the wills are kept securely and acted upon the death of the testator in accordance with his or her wishes. At the same time, the probate and administration processes can be updated to make it fuss-free for applicants by leveraging on the government's archive of key documents, maybe even in lieu of court applications. I'll be grateful if the Honourable Minister please provide an update on the efforts to modernise and simplify the probate and administration processes by leveraging on IT. Thank you.